Good morning. My name is Mark Swihart. I'm going to be the worship associate this morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the North Hills. Whether you have been with this church for a decade or more, or if this is your first time with us, we welcome you. Whatever your faith, whatever the traditions of your past, welcome. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are, whomever you love, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, whatever your journey has been, welcome to our church. And newcomers and guests are always welcome to participate in any of our church activities. If you'd like more information about our church or about Unitarian Universalism, please talk to our minister, Reverend Jane Thickstun. You can find her information at our website. Today, please join us for coffee hour following the service. There will be a Zoom link posted in the YouTube chat at the end of the service, or you can find that link in the upper right-hand corner of our web page. Now, if you're new or relatively new, we're having a virtual Meet the Church session after the service today. This is an opportunity for you to take an hour to meet others and learn about Unitarian Universalism and about this congregation. You don't have to be signed up to attend. Just look for the Zoom link in the chat at the end of the service. We'd love to have you. Here's something fun. On Saturday, February 13th, come for a Valentine's steaming mug social. Bundle up, bring your favorite hot drink to sip, wear your mask, and come enjoy some real live socializing with your UUCNH friends. While you're at it, you can visit the puzzle and book swap table to find your next great read or winter diversion. Now, although our church building remains closed, the restrooms will be accessible during the event, and hot water and a limited drink mix packet supply will be available outside. That's on Saturday, February 13th, the Valentine's Steaming Mug Social. Again, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the North Hills. It's good to be together, even virtually.
Good morning. Welcome all. We come together today seeking a reality beyond our narrow selves that binds us in compassion, love, and understanding to other human beings and to the interdependent web of all beings. May our hearts and minds be opened to the power and the insight that weave together the scattered threads of our experience, and help us remember the wholeness of which we are a part. Words of Wayne Arneson. Come, let us join together in the celebration of life.
May God, the mind that sees our faults, the tears that sting our wounds, the laugh that soothes our aches, and the love that redeems us all, be illuminated by the light we kindle in this house of faith. Let's all sing together the opening hymn, Down the Ages We Have Trod, number 2. Down the ages we have trod, many paths in search of God, seeking to ever define the eternal and divine. There are others who proclaim God and nature are the same, and the present Godhead own, where creation's laws are known. Though the truth we can't perceive, this at least we must believe. What we take most earnestly is our living deity.
The Everything Seed, written by Carol Martignacco and illustrated by Joy Troyer. Have you ever watched a seed grow? Have you ever noticed how it begins so small, so still, so quiet, like a gift waiting to be opened? And how slowly it wakes up, begins to unfold, growing into something larger and larger and larger. Then you know that whatever comes from the seed usually ends up looking very little like the seed it came from, which is also true of the very first seed. Once, long, long ago, way back before the beginning, so long ago there was no such thing as time, because there was no one there to count it. Everywhere was a huge, deep, mysterious place, like something waiting to happen. There were no stars, no sun or moon. There was no place like Earth, not a drop of water or a single tree or rock or flower, and no living beings anywhere. But in that deep, waiting space was hidden the tiniest point of something no bigger than a seed. It was not a flower seed. It was not an oak tree seed. It was not a seed of corn, although all of those things were included in the seed. You might call it an everything seed, because that is what it became. No one knows where that first seed came from, or how it was planted, or how it knew, in that way that only seeds seem to know, how long to wait for just the right moment to sprout and grow. But all at once, this tiny seed, cradled and nourished in the rich soil of space, woke up, broke open, and began to unfold. Unfolding and blossoming forth into an enormous, blazing ball of bright light, like a great-grandmother's sun. And the universe was born. Out fluttered the galaxies, like a storm of snowflakes swirling and gathering into the brightest, most blindingly beautiful clouds of stars. And out of those star clouds whirled our own star, the one we call the sun, and our earth, and our moon, and all the round spinning planets we have learned how to name. And this is the secret of that tiny seed. You and I were there at the very beginning. Just as the idea for each leaf on a big oak tree lies hidden inside an acorn, we were there with all the stars and planets, all the rocks and oceans, plants and animals and people. Everything that is now, ever was, or ever will be, was hidden inside that first tiny seed. So whenever you hold a seed in your hand and wonder what it could become, imagine how you and all that is here once came from the tiniest speck of an everything seed before it sprouted and grew long, long ago in the way back beginning of time. Now, if this were an ordinary story, it would end right here. But this story of the universe keeps unfolding. What once began in a blazing blossom of light continues every day. New stars sprout open in the deep soil of space. New plants and animals appear on Earth. Seeds of many kinds are scattered everywhere to help us remember. And new people are born every day with the spark of that first light still alive and burning deep inside, waiting, like the everything seed, to shine in ways that are yet to be known.
Hi, I'm Chris Hill with the Lay Pastoral Care Team. During our service, we create this sacred space for sharing within our community. It's a time for you to share significant life passages with the congregation so you can be held in loving care. I'll be reading the joys and sorrows this morning. We'll be placing a stone representing each joy or sorrow in the sand, representing our congregation, supporting the sorrows and lifting up the joys. Midge Miles reports a sorrow. Sue Duda fell and broke her hip in a fall on January 3rd. She is now in Vincentian rehab where she is having physical therapy. She is mostly in a wheelchair with short walks with a walker. She'll be reevaluated in a few weeks to determine when she can return to her Cumberland Woods condo. To Sue, we say, we hold you in our hearts. Lena Carslaw has a joy. My birthday was January 20th, and it was the best birthday ever. Not for what was given, but for what was taken away. The divisiveness, the hatred, and the lies that have gone rampant over the last 4 years, and it feels like a weight is lifted. I also got life-altering news this week when I finally secured an agent for my novel, Regrip. This book has been my dream for almost a decade, and it goes to the publishers this week. Please support me and this dream by following my updates on Twitter and Instagram. To Lanny we say, we share in your joys. We now place one more stone in the sand for all the joys and sorrows that exist in our hearts but remain unspoken today. We especially think of everyone suffering, directly or indirectly, from this COVID-19 pandemic. Please read with me the words appearing on the screen, understanding that here includes all those watching. Let us hold in our circle of caring each person here. Let us hold in our hearts those who are unable to be with us today. Let us hold in our memories those who have moved on. Let us find comfort in knowing that we are not alone.
I invite you to join me now in a spirit of meditation or prayer. So please settle in a little more comfortably. Close your eyes if you wish. Allow your body to just relax into the sacred space that you are in. And breathe. Breathe deeply. And breathe out slowly. Breathing in compassion. And breathing out peace. I share with you these words of Wendell Berry. We clasp the hands of those who go before us and the hands of those who come after us. We enter the little circle of each other's arms and the larger circle of people whose hands are joined in a dance, and the larger circle of all creatures passing in and out of life, who move also in a dance to a music so subtle and vast that no ear hears it except in fragments. Let us pause for a few moments in silent reflection.
Our congregation is supported solely by the contributions of our members and friends. In tough times, we need our faith community more than ever. Let's make sure to maintain it, even in this difficult time. The morning offering will be taken by your mailing a check to the building or by going to the uucnh.org website, finding the link in the upper right-hand corner that says Donate, and making a contribution to what you would be putting in the plate, or more.
receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. Today's reading is by C. Robert Maisel from his book titled Process Theology, A Basic Introduction. For over 20 years, my relationship with my wife has been of paramount importance in my decisions about how I will create myself. She and I have shaped each other. I experience her and then create myself by deciding who I will be, how I will act. Her love and anger and joy and frustration express themselves in ways that I experience, experiences that are literally part of who I am. And it is by taking those experiences in and deciding how I will respond to them that I create myself. Her life is literally part of my life. Without her, I would be a different person than I am, probably a profoundly different person. What is true of my relationship with my wife, that I create myself out of that relationship, is true in varying degrees of importance of my relationship to everything and everyone else in the world. If there had been no Big Bang 20 billion years ago, I would not be here. If stars billions of years away in time and space had not exploded and spewed forth their gifts of heavy elements, I would not be here. My life is a product of all that has gone before. Though I respond consciously and thoughtfully to only a tiny portion of the universe, it all touches me. I do not first exist and then have relationships. I am who I am because of the relationships of which I am a part, because of the decisions other creatures make about how to create themselves, and because of the decisions I make about how to respond to my relationships to them.
Just remember you are standing on a planet that's evolving and revolving at 1,000 miles an hour and orbiting at 19 miles a second, so they reckon the sun, which is the source of all our power. The sun with you and me and all the stars that we can see are moving at 1,000,000 miles a day. In the outer spiral arm at 40,000 miles an hour of the galaxy we call the Milky Way. The Milky Way itself contains 100 billion stars. It's 100,000 light years side to side. It bulges in the middle, 16,000 light years thick. Out by us, it's just 3,000 light years high. We're 30,000 light years from galactic central point. We go round every 200 million years. Our galaxy is only one of millions of billions in this amazing and expanding universe. The universe itself is expanding and expanding in every direction it can whiz. As fast as it can go, the speed of light, 12 million miles a minute, and that's the fastest speed there is. So remember when you're feeling very small and insecure, how amazingly unlikely was your birth. And pray that there's intelligent life somewhere out in space, 'cause there's nothing like that down here on Earth.
estuary. And just remember that you're standing on a planet that's evolving. The universe itself keeps on expanding and expanding. Everything is in process, always in process. Nothing stands still. This story of the universe keeps unfolding. And like the everything seed, everything that exists has a common source. We're all related to each other, to all other living beings, and indeed to all other beings, including the rocks and the rivers, the sun and the moon. Robert Mesley, the author of today's reading, relates the process of creating himself out of the relationship with his wife to the process of creating himself out of the relationship to all that is and ever was. This is what process theology, also sometimes called process relational theology, is all about. I decided to preach on process theology for a few reasons. I was aware of an interest in the congregation in doing the classic Unitarian Universalist course called Building Your Own Theology. And I believe it may, in fact, be offered soon. And as our fourth principle states, we Unitarian Universalists are both free and responsible for our search for truth and meaning. Strictly speaking, our faith doesn't provide us with a specific theological perspective, and it's up to us to figure out what makes sense to us. That doesn't mean we don't have a common faith, which I'll preach about next month, but the metaphysical and theological perspectives about reality are pretty diverse. Many Unitarian Universalists are attracted to process theology, probably because it describes a God that is not supernatural, but very much a part of the natural world. We do not have to give up science in any way to believe in this God. We don't have to give up reason for this theological perspective. Process theology comes out of the process philosophy of Alfred North Whitehead. Charles Hartshorne, a Unitarian who just died in the year 2000 at age 103, developed this concept theologically, emphasizing a God who is affected by creation and can change in response to it. There are many problems with the God of Christianity. The God of the Bible is a capricious character who becomes much more distant in the New Testament. But the Christian God has been just as strongly influenced by Greek philosophy, which produced an abstract concept of a being that is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent, or all-powerful, all-present, all-knowing, and all-good or loving. For nearly 2,000 years, Christian theologians have been trying to merge the Greek and the biblical ideas of God. In my mind, not without much success. One of the biggest problems throughout history with this conception of God is the problem of evil, also known as theodicy. How to reconcile belief in an all-powerful, all-knowing, and perfectly good and loving God with the existence of evil and suffering in the world. If God knows all and has infinite power and really is perfectly good and loving, how in the world can this God allow us to suffer? Or put another way, if God knows something bad will happen and has the power to prevent it, but doesn't, how can this God be loving? If God has all those attributes, It just doesn't add up. Process theology deals with this in a nutshell by taking away the absolute power, dropping the omnipotence out of the equation. God creates with us. God suffers with us. The process theology God is not outside of the world, but very much a part of it. This God is part of all that is and was and will be, and evolves along with us all. This allows for free will. There's a sense in which the past largely determines the future. The choices I made yesterday, for instance, limit the choices I can make today. I am delivering this sermon right now because I made a choice to do so, perhaps regrettably, a month or so ago. When I started studying psychology and then sociology, I began to see just how much of my personality has been formed by forces not under my control, and that I'm not anywhere near as original or as free as I once thought I was. But that is still not the determinism required by a belief in a God that knows all past and future, and so there is nothing I can do that isn't already predestined to happen. The process theology God doesn't know the future any more than we do, because it depends on decisions that haven't been made yet. This God exists in time, like we do, not outside of time, not outside the world, not outside of time. We live in an adventurous universe, hurtling at breakneck speed from an energetic burst some 14 billion years ago. The universe is incomplete and unfinished, and its future pathways are uncertain. Since God doesn't have everything determined in advance, life is even an adventure for God. It's not just humans whose decisions matter. It's everything, down to the smallest electron or quark. Process theology takes modern physics into account, and as Mesley says, there is a sense in which electrons and human minds may both be said to be free. Given a set of conditions, they can respond in more than one way. Freedom is a basic fact of reality. Process theologians affirm that every moment of experience is a creative synthesis, joining past, present, and future, order and novelty, what has happened and what may emerge. We are creators. We create ourselves and our relationships moment by moment. Another conceptual shift in process theology is to see the world as consisting of events instead of objects, becoming as opposed to being. Reality is made up of events, not things. Whitehead said, "The process is the reality." Each moment is made up of choices, all of which affect each other and all future choices, all future moments. In a book called Piglet's Process, author Bruce Epperly tells us that Whitehead says the whole universe conspires to create each moment of experience, and each moment of experience radiates beyond itself, shaping even what God can do. Each small moment is our gift to the universe, expanding or contracting the range of possibility for its successors. We can drop our pebble in the pond, not knowing the ultimate impact of our act, but be confident as we see the ripples that the world is vastly different, simply because we were here and did our part at this moment in time. In Process Theology, a basic introduction, Mesley gives an analogy to illustrate the difference between the traditional views of God and the process theology view of God. The traditional view, he says, is like a vinyl record on which the entirety of the music is stamped out in one instant, like the way God created time. All at once, God can see the whole thing spread out. We experience it in sequence, though, as the record plays, but it's all there already to God. That's the traditional view. In contrast, time for the God of process theology is more like music improvised by a jazz combo. The musicians have some idea of where they're going, and the choices they have made so far suggest directions for the future. But the whole point of improvisation is that they are making up the music as they go. They can change keys, change tempo, suddenly shoot off in response to a new idea, etc. Mesley suggests we might play with the idea of God as the lead flute player in the jazz combo. God has the power to shape the music by God's own choices of what notes to sound, to the extent that the other players are sensitive and choose to follow God's lead. The revelation of God's musical vision has power to shape the becoming of time. But the insensity of the world and the world's choice to create its own music mean that the music is not always what God would choose. This highlights something that process theologians emphasize, that this God operates by persuasion rather than coercion. God does not control, but invites and inspires. As my colleague Elizabeth Stevens says, the God of process theology isn't in charge. In a universe of free choosers, God can't make anyone or anything do anything. But God pulls on the heartstrings and activates deeper, life-giving, and love-filled longings. God hopes and lures and loves, but God is in the thick of it, just like the rest of us. God is powerful and essential to the continuance of life, and God is helpless to actually, concretely do much of anything beyond luring the universe toward wholeness, toward ultimate goodness, toward unconditional love. The God of process theology is considered to be panentheist, which is contrasted to the traditional theist view of God being outside of and separate from the world. It's also different from a pantheist view, which sees God and the natural world as one and the same. Pantheism literally means all is God, whereas panentheism means all is in God. As UU minister Gary Kowalski puts it in a 2003 UU World article, God is in the cosmos, though not completely identified with the cosmos, surpassing it as the whole exceeds the parts. In a participatory universe where we all have a role in the construction of reality, God is the one who participates in all life and every act of creation. There's nothing supernatural about this God. In process theology, all creatures are valued participants within this great living system. There's a sense in which the whole world is alive and contributing to the greater life we all share. Freedom permeates the universe, and the non-human world is as divine as we are. This is a God we can pray to. It has no gender and no personality, but as the force of love and creativity in the universe, or the flute player in the jazz combo, if you will. This God can guide us if we seek guidance. We can't pray for someone to love us or for our side to win, but we can ask how to make the choice to act from love rather than from self-interest. We can look deep inside us for the direction love is luring us in, for the choices we can make that help in the creation of a world that is more just, more beautiful, and more loving. Which brings me to the final point I want to make. The God of process theology is all about love. Epperly says, he says, process theologians believe that without love there can't be theology. God loves the world, and we find God when we love each other, especially those whose love opens our heart to the holy. Process theologian David Griffin says, God at every moment loves all creatures perfectly, wishing them all well and feeling their experiences sympathetically, suffering with their pains, rejoicing with their joys. To say that God grows is to say not that God becomes wiser or more loving, but only that as new creatures arise and new experiences occur, the objects of the divine love have increased, and therefore the divine experience has been enriched. We are all connected. We are free. Our choices matter. We create with our choices, with our lives. We co-create with each other and with God. Our relationships are ingredients from which our lives emerge, not just our relationships with other humans, but with everything else in the universe. We are all connected in an intricate web of existence, and we are guided by love. Let us sing once more. We would be one. It's number 318 if you have a hymnal, but the words will be on the screen.
We would be one, as now we join in singing our hymn of love, to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new communion justice, strive to make us free.
In closing, I offer these words of my colleague and friend, Mary Eads. Like the cosmic dust following after a great meteor, we are the living remnants of time and all that has come to pass in its wake, briefly shining lights on the way to eternity. We are only visible to the naked eye for an instant. Take this moment to shine like the stardust that you are. May the light of our time on earth shine to bless the world and each other. Shine, shine, shine. Go in peace, but please join us for coffee hour.